You see, something's going to happen. Something wonderful.
My God, it's full of stars.
Welcome back, everybody, to a new episode of the NYPatriot. Today we have a very special guest, somebody that I've followed, I've listened to, and I think has some great, amazing content, especially when I'm going into the occult stuff. I'd have to say he's probably one of the better ones I've come across. His name is William Ramsey. He has his own show, and he's put out some books and videos. And we're going to cover Aleister Crowley today, something that I've seen him go into, and I think he has some great work on the man. So here he is, William Ramsey, and you can give yourself a little introduction.
Great, thanks for having me, New York Patriot. Great to be with you again. And I wrote my first book 10 years ago. That was Prophet of Evil, about Aleister Crowley. It's essentially a biography. And then I've written 3 other books than that. Children of the Beast, which is about Crowley's influence on modern politics and culture. And then Abomination, which is about the West Memphis 3 case and all the occultism involved in that. And then I also wrote kind of a smaller book titled Aleister Crowley, a Visual Study, which really was taking all of the kind of graphics and pictures of Crowley and his people in his circle and kind of laid it out. So if people are more visual learners, I would recommend that book. It's $5 on Kindle.
Nice.
And then I've made 5 documentaries kind of on the same subjects, but 2 primary documentaries on the subject of what's known as the Smiley Face Killers, which is the phenomenon of young men disappearing after a night out and ending up in water.
Yeah.
And,
you actually did a great job on that. I think you did better than what I think the Oxygen Channel even had out.
well, thanks. I mean, I think they did a good job on Oxygen, but I don't think they captured the breadth of the phenomenon. They only handled 6 cases.
Yeah, I think you went over it a little bit more.
Yeah. So I mean, I covered, I think in that first documentary, it was 72 cases, and then another 40 in my second one. So I tried to, and there's probably another 100 or 200 additional cases that I haven't covered. But I was really trying to just show that something's happening in a global sense. But very strange that these young men, usually healthy, prime of their life, shouldn't be drowning, are found in bodies of water that are not perilous at all. They're lakes or ponds or strange places after disappearing, sometimes for a significant amount of time.
I think that even ties into occult practices, some of them.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Oh, big time. Yeah, so there's like some very dark stuff. I covered some very dark characters. Peter Christopherson, who had an interesting arc of his life, occultist, musician, hung out with other occultists. Genesis P. Orge, who just passed away. What's that?
I said, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he was in New York City. So in New York City, too, was an epicenter. There's like probably the most cases that people know of, or I know of, are New York City, Boston, the geographical area around Minnesota and Wisconsin, and then Bath in Manchester in the UK. But yeah, New York, there's very many cases. And one of the original cases was a guy by the name of McNeil. I think he was disappeared in the mid-90s, and some people refer to him as Victim Zero. But he, the same phenomenon, the same MO, out night, either drugged or really drunk. Somebody trails them, they disappear, and McNeil was found in a water processing plant down the Hudson, very far away from where he was last seen on Manhattan. And so, very disturbing, strange stuff.
Oh, for sure, yeah. So actually a little scary if you think about it.
Well, it really is. I think that like one of the things that makes men vulnerable at those late hours is they don't think they're vulnerable, whereas women probably would never walk home alone or do things that would put them in risk. Men are more prone to that. And then if you throw in somebody who's a serial killer, I talked about one guy in Wisconsin. His name was Lamphere, and he actually he was a predator, but he learned to, like, his victims were leaving the bars. That was where he, was able to abduct people. He literally had 2 men tied up in his garage, and he was like a heterosexual. I think he was married at one point, but he had these men and was doing awful things. And I included him in my first documentary. It's kind of like a offender typology of people who might be doing these types of crimes. But so they were clearly, these guys know. And in my second one, there was a guy who was the most prolific rapist in British history. His name was Reynard Sinaga. He was actually not even British. He was from Indonesia, But he would do the same thing. He was actually externally kind of this nice, unassuming dude. But he would go pick up guys at bars and take them home and drug them and rape them.
Wow.
And a lot of them didn't even know that it was happening. They didn't even, a lot of them were so drugged, they didn't know. But that whole case was incredible because the number of his victims was in the hundreds. And we don't know. I mean, Manchester is a hotspot too. They call this phenomenon in different parts of the world different names. So in Manchester, he's known as the pusher, pushing people in water.
The water. Gotcha, yeah.
And I was in actually a documentary by a guy named Gary Jay. You can see it on Amazon, but I was talking about my investigation into it. And I was really not the first investigator. There's many people before me. The original investigators who kind of coined the term Smiley Face Killers were Gannon and Gilbertson, a cop in New York. But yeah, they were the ones who kind of gave it the name. It's a bit of a misnomer, but they always found the smiley face associated with
the crime
deaths,
scenes.
And that's how it got its name. What's that?
Yeah, with the crime scenes, there's always like a smiley face somewhere. Yeah.
Right. So, and there's some after more recent than the ones they covered, ones that I've covered. There was a kid in Boston. I can't remember his name, but he was like in the central bar area of Boston, and there was a spray painted smiley face near where his body was found. But it's still prevalent. I mean, this whole kind of pandemic, clearly nobody was out, so it stopped. But there's been some recent cases, and Gilbertson and Gavin were the other early ones. Jim Smith. There was a guy named Eponymous Rex or Rocks, and he's on YouTube. You can see his books on Amazon. But he saw part of the smiley face, and there's been a couple cases. One is Footprints at the Water's Edge, which really covers many of these cases, 200 or 300 cases there.
Wow.
There's been a couple websites, but people come and go, and there have been researchers. People have talked about this case on Coast to Coast.
Oh, yeah, really, I've heard that too, yeah.
Yeah, there was a woman whose name I can't remember right now. So there have been other people who've kind of come and gone, written books, but I thought it was an urban myth, and then I really started following the cases along, and Jim Smith became my chief kind of investigator or researcher for my first documentary. But we kind of synced up after the disappearance of a guy in Columbus, Ohio by the name of Joey LaBute. And when he disappeared, he was a homosexual. But when he disappeared, I said, if this guy gets found in water, I'm going to freak out. And 19 days after his disappearance, he was found in the Scioto River. And that case was actually covered by a very popular podcast called True Crime Garage. So they're aware of that. They're from...
Oh, I just recently found them and started listening to them. Just recently.
Yeah, no, they do a good job. And they covered that case particularly because they're from Columbus, Ohio. So they know this case of Joey LaBute. And there's been a couple other strange cases there. But that was really what piqued my interest. I watched Joey LaBute disappear and end up in water. And then the next one was Dakota James in Pittsburgh, PA.
I remember that one, yeah.
Same thing if he falls in water. That was actually covered by the great Cyril Wecht, who's a very well-known forensic pathologist. He's been involved in cases and tons of TV stuff. I actually interviewed him for my podcast.
Did you? Wow.
Yeah, no, it was an interesting thing. Like he was kind of a Luddite. I don't think he's very technically astute. So I actually interviewed him like a gumshoe reporter. I just shoved my phone into the recorder, and it was basically like a phone conversation.
That's awesome.
I shoved my phone into the mic and just did it. I was like, okay, let's do it. But anyway, I really admire that guy. I think he's really an intelligent person, and also his conclusions on a lot of those cases are not kind of publicly. I think that he gets it right over and over again, really, whether it's John Bonet or all that stuff. Anyway, so he was involved in that case, and yeah, there's just a lot of information. Like you mentioned, the oxygen case with Gilbert and Gannon was 6 things long, and they were both on kind of modern TV shows. I think back when it dropped in 2019, maybe. That was the 2 guys are Dr. Oz and Dr. Phil. So they were on those shows talking about the cases. But like I said, I think they didn't capture the breadth of the phenomenon, I think is kind of what I tried to do.
Yeah, no, you did much better. You did a really good job on that. That's why I thought it was really good, because I think you really pointed out how much bigger it really is.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it's long. My first documentary is 3.5 hours long, so it's like over researched, but I did think it was important because you can just see, like, okay, there's 72 people here who have disappeared and been found in water within the last 15 years. There's a phenomenon taking place. There's some kind of true crime phenomenon. Why? And then you got to ask the question of motive and who's doing it, why is it happening?
Yes, yep.
And I just don't buy the story. There's been other people who've tried to debunk the theory. There's papers out there, but the shortcoming is that they can't debunk it. Why are these healthy guys who could literally just walk out of these bodies of water? Why don't they just fall in, jump out? And that's really the problem. Is that there's a real problem with their analysis because they don't take into account of a lot of things, and they couple these water deaths in with normal drownings, but these aren't normal drownings. They don't occur during daylight hours, and also people are missing. Like a lot of these, and you can detail the cases. See the case in my documentary, which are on Vimeo. But a lot of these people are searched for in these bodies of water, not found, and then found in that exact same body of water.
Yep.
That's a real problem too. So they don't account for that.
I was going to bring that up. They actually find people with with stuff in their lungs that shouldn't even match where they were found.
All kinds of problems. Like Dakota James, for example, if you want to get graphic, he was missing for 40 days, but his body wasn't even in a moderately advanced state of decomposition. If you're in the water for 40 days, like they supposedly said he drowned, he would have been in much worse shape than when he was found. And also, he had Cyril Weck said he had the remnants of a rope or a garrote around his neck, and you can see it in the picture. So
yeah, he was tied with something, obviously.
Yeah, and then you got to ask the question: what's the legal system doing? What's the local prosecutors doing? Is it a lot easier for them to just say this is an accidental drowning? There have been cases that have been overturned by local cops after research. One was Chris Jenkins, and his mom wrote a book called Footprints in Courage, I think it was, if I can remember. Ed Opperman interviewed her. But her case was interesting because first the police there said it was an accidental drowning, and then after more evidence was uncovered, they said there was misadventure or some form of murder, which I agree with. I think that Chris Jenkins was also targeted probably one way or another, either at a bar or walking home. And and there's been a lot of cases there in Minnesota too, University of Minnesota, and that's definitely like a hot epicenter of these types of crimes.
Mm. All right, so we'll get back to we got sidetracked there a little bit with the Smiley Face Killers. It's definitely something I'm going to have you cover though, because I think there's so much to get into with that.
There's a lot.
Yeah,
there's a lot that I couldn't even put in a documentary. Frankly, there's just so much information.
Way too long.
What's that?
It'd be probably way too much, and people would end up getting bored.
Well, to a certain extent, I think that I kind of feel like I'm pushing the ball down the field, so to speak. Like other people have carried the ball, and then my documentaries are like, okay, here's more information. You carry it, and it's really disturbing. It's dangerous. People have to be careful. But things are getting more and more dangerous in society, and I think the Smiley Face Killers is one element of it.
Yeah, for sure. No, I totally agree. That's why I want to cover it. All right, so now we'll go back to the infamous Aleister Crowley. What got you into? What got you into even like getting into that to start covering it? And
9/11, absolutely. I was a 9/11 researcher. And didn't really know much about the occult. I had a very superficial knowledge of Crowley after hearing him on the Ozzy Osbourne songs. And, sometimes they'll be mentioned here and there, but not really in detail and depth. And then...
all the flight numbers have something to do.
Right, yeah. Absolutely.
I don't think too many people actually know that.
There's all kinds of numerology involved in 9/11, just the date itself, 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And
Flight 93.
There's a guy called Captain May. And he passed away. He had Lou Gehrig's disease, like he had a terrible disease. But he was talking probably around 2006, very early, like he noticed this just numerical pattern. Why are all these 11s all over the place? 9/11, the first plane that hit the towers was an 11. And so I kind of just built on that, like, what is this 11? Why is 11? And really just looking at all that stuff led me to the occult and then led me to Crowley, because it's 11. 7793 is Crowley's prime. You probably know this as former member of the OTO.
Yeah, 77 is Libra
and Agape, right?
Yeah, Love and Agape. And then I think they have Libra Astarte was another flight.
Right, 175.
Yeah. And then
so it's all there.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I mean,
for
even
real.
the buildings itself. So everything leads back to David Rockefeller and Nelson Rockefeller.
I even
And
think
really kind of the gods, kings of the earth, titans.
I had
and the
wondered if
building.
they represented the Twin Towers as being the two pillars of the Kabbalah. I had often wondered
No,
if that.
I think they're the two pillars, Boaz and Jachin. Right?
Yeah.
But it's very deep. It was
Yeah.
clearly built with tons of occult meaning. There was the spherical caryatid, which was that circle that you see in the center that's been distributed around the world. That was included actually in, and it's a hint, a foreboding and foretelling that they knew 9/11 was going to happen in the film Fight Club, where they actually take the spherical caryatid and roll it into a Starbucks as one of their operations.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So, but that spherical caryatid, the word itself is a Greek word for kind of like a religious figure that holds up a temple. That's the meaning of it. And so there's definitely this kind of like temple quality to the Twin Towers. So
Yeah.
they're also 110 stories tall, right? Each one. So it's two 11s.
Yeah.
And
I never even
it's
knew
just
that.
an 11 in the silhouette. So, I mean, and even Crowley said that 11 itself is kind of like a symbolic representation of duality. So people who built that building, like the Rockefellers own the land, right? They own the land there. They built the UN building as well after World War II. So they had a lot of juice. And those were Nelson and David. And Nelson died under mysterious circumstances, but he was almost president. If you remember, he was the vice president under Ford, right? And Ford almost got shot in the head by Squeaky Fromm. Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah,
No.
so Squeaky Fromm of the Manson family took a shot at him.
Oh wow.
Or somebody did, yeah.
Well, see, I even think all that Manson stuff
would have been president.
all that Manson stuff was a cult too.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. He knows a lot. Manson knows a lot about the occult.
Oh, sure. I think
Pre-entrant.
he probably, if he's recognized at some kind of degree or something, I guarantee you he's very high up there. Like if people look at attainments, like I'm sure they would put him up there.
Well, he was rumored to be the Grand Chingon, like the head of a very heavy order. But he's made statements pre-internet about Abraxas. He was associated probably with, in one way or the other, the Process Church or the Final Judgment. So a lot of that stuff that he integrated into his family was a lot of the terminology and views were process views where, you're Christ and Satan. You can be both at the same time.
Yeah, I could see how they think that.
But yeah, there's a lot of things there. But yeah, no, 9/11 was really how I got into Crowley. Once I kind of deciphered the meanings and times, and that was a pre-planned event. And once I understood, like George Bush Sr., his more famous New World Order speech was on September 11th, 1990, right? So it was exactly 11 years to the date of the event of 9/11. There's a direct numerical tie.
See, like I don't even know this stuff, so you're telling me. And
So you
I'm
can
like,
go back
wow.
where he says, we're going to secure for ourselves and future generations, and it's the law of the jungle, and we're looking for a new world order. That New World Order speech. I mean, that's it. I think the average person cannot comprehend the ability of these people to, have these events and actually be in that much control that they could actually plan that event that far in advance. And I think they did. And I think a lot of the people who worked a lot of the people after Bush, the Clinton was like Bush's lackey. He was like informing for the CIA when he was a Rhodes Scholar. So these guys all had connections.
Oh, I think
you can go Bush, Clinton, Bush Jr., and it's all the same crew, right? It looks different on the surface, but if you're a part of the oligopoly or oligarchy, these are your boys,
Well, it's a funny thing, not to try to get into like politics, but like if you even look back then with like the whole New World Order, you had a Republican president. But now I feel like we're back to that whole idea, but now with a Democrat president.
Right.
So does it even matter which side, if you think about it sometimes?
Well, right. They don't care. A lot of their decisions, even Clinton, were kind of Republican decisions. He was tough on crime. There were crime bills. There were there's all kinds of swindles and stuff like that. So they're operating at the top. They're being puppeteered by somebody who is beyond right and left.
Mm-hmm.
And Biden was their boy, the New World Order boy, to get rid of Trump, who was kind of too independent. And Biden's made a number of speeches talking about the New World Order.
Yeah.
So he's part of the team. He's a Mason, probably.
I definitely believe that Trump would have been a better. I mean,
What's
I was a fan of Trump, so I mean.
Well, I mean, I was a fan of somebody who wasn't part of the squad.
Yeah,
Trump
exactly.
Wasn't. Trump is definitely way too independent for them. So he was making way too many of his own decisions for the benefit of the country, which they don't want. So anyway, so that's kind of how I led. I mean, it was through 9/11 that led me to Crowley. And then I kind of wanted to really get an understanding of who Crowley really was, not outside of all the biographies I read. So I read like most of the known biography. I think it's Lawrence Sutin, Kaczynski, Crowley's literary person who, after he died, his name I can't remember now. So he wrote, I think it was something about the beast or something. But yeah, so I read all those, and they gave me kind of an insight into who he really was. But then I went back to the original documents that he wrote and, you know, was involved with. So I read a lot of Eliphas Levi.
What's that Dogma book?
Morals and Dogma.
Yeah.
That was actually, they supposedly ripped off a lot of stuff. Pike ripped off a lot of stuff from Levi and put it into Morals and Dogma. What's that?
I was. They say that he even Eliphas Levi even influenced the Golden Dawn, and that's kind of where they even think the whole lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram.
Yeah, no, that banishing rituals are right out of the Golden Dawn. So all that stuff is Golden Dawn magic. Yep. A lot of that stuff, pentagram,
the hexagram. Yeah.
So, so then Crowley, you kind of just want to read his works and what he said. So I went through and read all, Magic and Theory and Practice. I read a lot of his missives and went through a lot of his,
that must have been rough for somebody.
Tragedy.
Somebody who wasn't even trying to practice the stuff, trying to read his work must have been a pain, because it is a little hard to even just read his own stuff. I mean,
it's the jargon is so
exactly
thick.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if any other occultists have been that obtuse as Crowley. But I don't think anybody was really as smart. Even some of the post-Crowley people, I don't seem to have. They weren't as much of well-read as Crowley and dedicated. Crowley never worked, right? So he had money, so he could just dedicate 24/7 to being an occultist and doing occult stuff. So
the funny thing is like I was, it's even saying, I was a member of the OTO, and I wasn't ignorant to the type of person that he was. I just knew. You could tell just from the stuff that he wrote that he was very smart, and I believed he was an occult genius. But like, you probably would even know more about him, because I was never one of those people at the OTO that wanted to put him up on a pedestal. I wasn't stupid. I was like, I know this guy's done sick stuff. Like, I don't know. It's just, it's funny how like
ingestion of bodily food.
Oh yeah. I think someone died at his abbey of Thelema from like ingesting shit.
Yeah, well, the one kid, his name was, I can't remember. He was written about, there's a book called Tiger Woman, and she was actually at the Abbey of Thelema. I see her face. I can't remember her name now, but he was kind of, Crowley's going to be one of his proteges or apprentices. And he was actually, the true story of that is that guy had jumped off like a church building and landed on an iron fence and had ruptured like his intestines. So he was not in the greatest of shape, and then he was at the Abbey of Thelema drinking crappy water and doing weird rituals with cats and stuff. And so he probably got enteritis just being in a bad situation.
I think they've also, you would probably know more because I'm sure you looked into it more. Wasn't there even accusations of him making people like have sex with goats there too?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, he made his girlfriend at the time have sex with a goat, and then he slit at the goat's throat and it bled over her. Yeah. Really gnarly stuff. And that's just what we know. There were allegations that babies disappeared there at the Abbey. And he had the place was like laid out as a magical temple. So the floor, which was uncovered by Kenneth Anger, had all of this kind of magical writing and ornamenture underneath it that Crowley would do rituals on. So, I
think when it came to him, I really think in his mind, he was like, anything that I think I will get any type of magical, stuff out of it. Like if I'm going to get magical results, he would have done whatever he thought actually would have achieved that.
Yeah, I think
that's
so.
some
I mean,
scary
if you read
stuff.
his stuff, he's constantly doing Liber Resh, right? The sun adorations. 4
Yeah,
times a
yeah,
day
yeah. I used to do that.
that they want you to do. He was always praying for money or other things, and he would have these rituals involving the moon, different planetary gods and stuff like that. So he was definitely a magician. I think that he was a Christ-hating, magician.
Oh, for sure. He made that very obvious.
That's really kind of one of the commonalities of a lot of the occultists is their derision towards Jesus Christ, and Crowley had that in spades. So, I think that he really dedicated himself. I think I have a quote in my book, Prophet of Evil, where he's like, when he was at Cambridge, he was of all the glories of the past, and he wanted to be the glories of the future, and that's really where he took off into the occult, was right after leaving Cambridge. I mean,
definitely think, in my opinion, that we may have ended up where we are now with occultism much later on down the road, but I definitely think he was the one that pretty much sped up what we're going through now.
Yeah, I would agree.
Like the world would be completely different if he never existed.
He was really like another transnational occultist. He was influencing people in Germany. He was part of a German secret society. OTO started in Germany.
Yep.
Yeah. It's really a German secret society. And, he's traveling to Italy, France, got kicked out of France, got kicked out of Germany.
He got kicked out of Italy too, right?
Kicked out of Italy, right, by the orders of Mussolini. And he was in Russia. Like I think I told you this last time we talked, but all of the Gnostic mass symbolism comes from Orthodox Christianity, which he liked.
Yeah, I think he said Russian Orthodox, right?
Yeah, the Russian Orthodox. Right?
Yep,
so
correct. Yeah.
It's just I think that's really what made Crowley the name figure he was, because there's all kinds of other occultists writing books and stuff, but I think it was just his unyielding dedication all the way to the end that gave an example to people to follow.
Exactly, yes. In your opinion, do you think a lot of, because I think I've, from listening to your show, you think a lot of the stuff that's occultism that's being used now, you think is actually a lot of it's influenced by his teachings, right?
Well, I think that people go back to him. I think that either whether or not they're in the OTO or whatever, I do think that they're referencing him, whether it's the Order of Nine Angles or even, the Temple of Set or LaVey. They all knew Crowley. They all knew about Crowleyites. Anton LaVey knew McMurtry, who was supposedly Crowley's heir, who was in Berkeley at the time, just across the Bay Bridge from him in San Francisco. So they were aware of that strain of occultism or Satanism.
That Order of Nine Angles is a pretty serious. I knew somebody from that. Now, I don't know how truthful they were, but the one person I did meet, because they showed up to an OTO Gnostic Mass, was talking to him afterwards. Like, some people may say things just to, I guess, maybe to sound edgy, so I don't know if this was true or not, but like this person legit admitted to like doing magic to harm or kill people. And I was like, yo, well, you're right. I ain't about all this.
Well, the original books, it's a 7-part system. It's different than Crowley's, which is usually, I think, an 11-part grade system in the OTO, if I remember correctly. He turned it into an 11-part grade. Right, 11's the number of magic, 5 and the 6, and macrocosm. But so they have 11, like a 7 septenary system, and at the 5th thing, I think it's the external adept. You're supposed to select somebody and kill them in a sacrifice.
Oh.
Like, so to get up to the top of that system, you have to engage in what's called an Opfer. It's a German word for sacrifice. You're supposed to do it, but it's very surreptitious. You don't go and shoot somebody on a street corner. You plot and plan and make a selection whether this person should be offed. So I don't think that the ONA is that huge. I don't think it's more than, I think some people have guesstimated its numbers to be 1,000 to 2,000, but if you have somebody who's really dedicated to that ideology, I mean, I would say for sure that it's an incitement to murder.
I'll tell you, the one person that I knew that was in that was definitely not wrapped too tight either. This person had a lot of issues, and I kept trying to tell him, like, yo, you know it's that shit you're messing with. I don't know. It was like almost delusional. It was pretty scary.
Well, don't you think that occultism, a lot of that, people get farther in, I think it intentionally pulls you away from a normal understanding of the world and reality. Would you agree with that?
Yeah,
Like
see, that's one of the reasons why I realized and why I stopped. I realized that, and I also realized that that whole thing can almost be, which I think is what makes it worse with people, is addictive, to tell you the truth.
Right.
I can find certain maybe experiences or results from magic can be very addictive, and it would change, and I could see it easily changing who you are. It's almost like walking a razor, and I'm not about to even take a chance like that to change who I am, you know?
Right.
It's almost like it would reprogram you in some ways.
I think that's one of the
It's the best way to say it.
that you are getting reprogrammed. And if there's like a very sinister person writing that occultism, you could literally be reprogrammed into kind of like, a foot soldier for that person or that group.
Yeah, that's exactly what I felt that the OTO was doing with a lot of their, at least with the places that I had went to. They seemed to push a very liberal ideology that seemed to promote just degradation of morals and values.
Right, like a trans, like
yes, and I think, really, in my opinion, I think that's because the people at the top actually want to control the people at the bottom. It's a whole other control structure, and then they use those people to do whatever sick ideas they come up with at the top.
Right. I mean, I think I'm trying to remember, what was the guy who was shooting people in New York City? He was part of the
Son
cult.
of Sam?
Yeah, Son of Sam.
Yeah.
What was his name? It was
oh God,
it was David
Berkowitz.
Berkowitz.
Yes.
Berkowitz was in the occult. He said it was like being sucked out into the far deep ocean. Like it was addictive, but it was also like pulling you away from the shore.
Yes. Yo, to be totally honest with you, that is probably, and I'll probably start using that phrase because I've never heard him say that before. That is an actual really good way to explain it. I'll swear to God.
So like you're away from the shore and you're out in these dark, deep waters. That's the way he explained it. And then when he got into jail, he became a born-again Christian. I think he still is a committed Christian. But he was still afraid. He was still afraid of talking about people he was involved with and stuff. So he definitely, and I don't think that he was just the one person who shot all those people.
I don't think him or the Zodiac Killer worked by themselves at all.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I think some of those murder sprees are probably involved more than one person. And even Smiley Face Killers, that whole phenomenon is, I mean, people say, well, do you think you're going to find the unsub? And I'm like, what do you mean singular? There's multiple people.
No, there's no way you could think that's one person.
Yeah.
I think that's just a bunch of groups of people doing the same practices.
I agree. I think that they learned this MO that could work, and then people instituted it with different motives and motivations, in my opinion. Because it worked. I mean, the cops just basically, write them off as the accidental drowning. So, yeah, anyway, the occult, so Crowley, Crowley died in 1947 and was born in 1875. And, he was a very complex person, but left a lot of stuff. A lot of those rituals, people learn from those rituals, adjust those rituals, practice those rituals.
I know I had listened to, I think recently you put something out not too long ago about his, you think like his influence in pop culture.
Right. I mean, so you can go through the list, whether it's Blondie, Marilyn Manson, David Bowie, Ozzy Osbourne.
David Bowie, that's obvious almost.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm looking right here. I got Marilyn Manson. He talked about the Abbey of Thelema in one of his...
one of his album covers. I think I sent it to you. Or maybe I didn't. One of the, like a picture on one of the Order of Nine Angles, they have a symbol, is right on one of his album covers.
Yeah. He did some kind of like mix up of Diary of a Drug Fiend and called his thing Diary of a Dope Fiend. So he plays off of Crowley's book. I think here's the lyric is, we're going to ride to the Abbey of Thelema, the Abbey of Thelema. Blood is pavement, the grill in the front is my sinister grin, which kind of ties into the Smiley Face Killers.
Yep.
Like that whole use of the smiley face, the esoteric use. And you see that theme within the occult too, is this kind of grinning, leering, evil person is kind of somebody who really loves evil. But yeah, Manson, the guy from Blondie has like written tons of books on Crowley as well. I forgot what his name is offhand, but Kenneth Anger.
Oh yeah, I've seen actually. Yeah, he has movies. Lucifer Rising. And he has Crowley's picture right. He has it hanging up on a wall.
Yeah, it's an invocation of my demon brother. His tie to the Manson family is very not well known, but Bobby Bouzoulet was his Lucifer in his movie Invocation of My Demon Brother, which I think is a play off of Crowley. And Anger himself was like carrying on Crowley's tradition. He visited the Abbey of Thelema and uncovered a lot of the crazy artwork that Crowley had drawn. But yeah, Anger's still alive, man. It's incredible that he was tied to all these people who Crowley influenced, like Parsons and his wife, Marjorie Cameron. He knew Marjorie Cameron and lived with her. Anger's been there's all kinds of rumors about him that aren't good. But yeah, he's seen a lot of the Anger's known Zeppelin, Page, Rolling Stones.
Didn't Anger use Jimmy Page?
What's that?
Did Anger use Jimmy Page to do the music for Lucifer Rising?
Yeah, I think that they did. I think that there was after Bouzoulet went to jail, then Page kind of was supposed to take it, but Page at that time was using massive amounts of heroin, and then he dropped off, and then Bouzoulet in jail wrote the music for it.
Oh, okay.
So and they're the kind of there's question of how much they really know each other, and is I think kind of hush hush, but they knew it. Bouzoulet lived with him in this place called the Russian Embassy, which is kind of close to Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco.
Oh wow. Now, I mean, if you even think about it, you mentioned Crowley and Parsons, and then Parsons was involved in the government. So do you ever think that, in your opinion, you think any of that stuff might have gotten involved? Like the government may have. He was reciting Crowley's hymn to Pan every time one of their rockets went off. Units, and he was mixing with L. Ron Hubbard, and so I think he died in 1952. But how much of that was influenced by his magic, and how much the Jado was, and the basic beginning of, the rockets? It's a good question, but yeah, I know some people think that maybe that might have been like a moment when the CIA might have kind of gotten involved in occultism.
I don't know, but it is interesting because they called it the Suicide Squad. It was Parsons, his friend Foreman, and then a guy from Czechoslovakia named Molina. And his son is married to Ghislaine Maxwell's sister.
What?
Can you believe that? Yeah, so Molina was part of the Suicide Squad, probably having to put up with listening to Parsons recite hymn to Pan at these things. He grows older, has his own son who marries Ghislaine Maxwell's sister.
No, isn't it crazy how all these people tie into each other?
It's just like there's something about them that ties into each other, I think. I don't know what it is, but
that's what I've even said that before, because some people say like, oh, when you get to the top, it's really only like 1%. And I was like, if you were to think of like even like half of the real famous people that we know, that's less than 1% of what the actual population is on the whole world. Right. So it's not really hard to believe. If you believe that, somehow there could be this top of the pyramid that's like the 1% controlling everything, it's not hard to believe then that these people are actually part of that or close to it. That's, pulling strings.
They network in circles that the average person doesn't network.
Yeah.
Right? So they go to these parties, they go to business meetings and things like that where they actually do meet them face to face. I think that he was at some kind of Monterey group, Epstein was, and he was mixing with everybody, all these tech leaders and things like that. So, New York, people in New York, and everybody denied he knew him, but he knew everybody in Hollywood, man.
Yeah.
They all knew him. So that was a huge cover-up. There were so many people who breathed a sigh of relief when Epstein got murdered because he probably had just the goods on thousands of people.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. You don't even hear anything about Maxwell anymore. What's going on with that?
Well, they just had a superseding indictment, so she's probably never going to get out of jail. They got another person. I don't know how valid she is, but a 14-year-old at the time, 14-year-old girl they were trafficking, I think, told the prosecutors more information. So she's in deep trouble.
Damn. Yeah, I'd like to see what comes from that.
Well, I don't know. I think a lot of that information is trying to be covered up. You notice that nobody in kind of like the corporate media ever wants to talk about Epstein again. But other people are
totally over with. Yeah.
Yeah, no. A lot of those people are covering for Epstein, man. They're covering. Some of these people on the right wing, I'm just in shock. Like, they just act like it didn't happen. And it's really not that shocking, but they're probably afraid of all the consequences of all the people who are connected to them. Because probably those people don't want to get arrested either. They're actually taking underage kids.
Yeah. That's. I definitely feel if that the truth whatever came out about that, I think that probably would have rocked the world. To be totally honest with you. Yeah,
I think you're right. I think the totality. I mean, they said like the Virginia Giuffre was with him for a couple years, and he said that his whole place in the mansion in New York was rigged with video cameras, and they literally had manned dudes running the video cameras there. Wow. So it was like a haunted house with like guys behind the walls watching everything. So anybody in that house for whatever reason, and if that was like that, it's probably the entire island was bugged. His plane was probably bugged and video recorded. I mean, go look at those flight logs. Thousands of people, celebrities of all different types, were on there.
Ghislaine Maxwell probably wasn't her family or her father was involved with spying stuff, right?
Yeah,
she could have gotten all that stuff for him.
His name was Abraham Laszlo. That was the real name. He took on this kind of anglicized name, but he was born in Czechoslovakia, and his whole family was murdered in the Holocaust or show or whatever. So he had a very strong connection to Israel and was probably an operative for them his whole life. And then he supposedly blackmailed them, and they killed him out on the Canary Islands. Chucked him off a boat.
Actually, bringing that up, an operative, that was actually something I was going to get into. I was going to ask you. There's a lot of talk that some people wanted to know if you like looked into it or what your thought about it was Crowley being like a double agent or an agent, or in my opinion, I think it was playing both sides, to tell you the truth.
Well, he said in his own autobiography, right, Confessions, that he was a lapdog. I think he compared himself to John Sykes' dog from Oliver, which was like this loyal dog. And so I think that he always got led back into England. So whenever he got kicked out of one of these countries, he would kind of come back. But I think he tacitly admits that he was an intelligence operative working in the United States to get the United States into war in World War I. So he was part of that effective group of people who were trying to undercut German propaganda and have the triumph of English propaganda. And it worked. And I think that he's pretty much admitted, and he makes statements within Confessions that he knew other operatives. And there was the book Secret Agent 666.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah, I never.
And that guy did some good research and got a document said that the U.S. said that Crowley was working for the government with the full knowledge of the U.S. government. So people knew that he was an asset. So I think he was. He worked for the Fatherland and 2 books of Fatherland and International. So he was writing like really crappy propaganda to make it look bad. And and it was interesting because he was with this guy Virek, who was like the German sympathizer, and he was one of the early people who interviewed Hitler. In 1924, there's an interview between Virek and Adolf Hitler where Hitler was really telling his whole program, right? I think it was before the putsch where they tried to overthrow the government, the German government. He said, Jews are going to do this and we're going to do that, blah, 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 blah. He lays out his whole thing. So he's really one of the first, the Iraq, after being with Crowley, was one of the first people to get the goods on Hitler. And then he had 2 kids, and one fought for the U.S. and the other fought for the Nazis.
You think? No, I always wondered if Crowley might have been somewhat of an influence on Hitler.
Well, people have speculated. So there's a lot of speculation. He was in the Weimar Republic from 1930 to 1933 when Hitler came to power, I think, in 1932. So he was there right as the Nazis really ascended to power. And he was still in the OTO, and he was always trying to get the Book of the Law, right, his most important received book in 1904, translated to Hitler through this woman who kind of knew Hitler. Her name, I can't remember. But if you look at some of Hitler's writings, it looks like he's read the Book of the Law. As he repeats almost, or some of his stuff repeats themes within the Book of the Law, like success is thy proof. Like you just be successful and don't mind the rules. Who cares what the rules are? I think he repeated that in some of his speeches.
Well, he was. I mean, my opinion, that whole thing on Hitler's side was, my opinion, all occult. So I had always assumed that. I mean, he might have had some kind of influence from Crowley if he was into magic.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he grew up. I mean, so Hitler was an Ariosophist, so he collected all the kind of German occultism.
Yeah. Oh, wasn't he into theosophy? Was it theosophy that he was into? I know there was one thing that was
he
known.
Supposedly had like the Aryan ideal of these root races and stuff was very highly promoted by Blavatsky. And he supposedly had the secret doctrine on a side book, like you would read it. So he might have gotten some of his ideas from that. And I covered in Children of the Beast, they have remnants of Hitler's library. And he had this one book by this guy, Schertler. And it's like Hitler was reading it and marking it up over and over, like he was remembering certain pieces from it. And that's just one of the few books that was remained. It ended up at Brown University in Rhode Island. But yeah, he's clearly occult influence. Hitler was, if not more occult influence. But I think he learned it all from the very beginning. Probably, he's definitely kind of comes out of German intellectual history, but also he's picking up stuff that comes from these occult thinkers. Like the head of the Thule Society was part of the German Workers' Party, the GWP, that was the beginning of the National Socialists. Oh, still there?
Yeah. Sorry, no, I don't know any of this, so I'm just listening. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. So Hitler's ideas definitely came out of the cult in a lot of ways. He wasn't a Christian, and I cover in my book. I cover in Children of the Beast that the Nazis were going to outlaw Christianity when they got the chance.
Yes, I don't think a lot of people know that Himmler. I really think a lot of the occultism. I think both were involved, but I think Himmler was by far more into it. And he went to Hitler supposedly and said that he thought that Christians were responsible for killing like German pagans. And I think basically Hitler said is if you can find proof, it's on. And I think they actually made a group of people that was their job, was to try to find this, but I don't think they found anything before the war ended.
Well, I would say that Hitler was paganistic. All his rituals and his public meetings were very paganistic.
Oh, but they're walking down the roads with torches and pagan gods.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't even know that exists.
Back then.
I mean, you could.
His ideas were paganistic, racialist. So it's hard to say that he's a Christian. They still have remnants of Christianity in there. He did repeat Christian statements. He said the Nazis were Christians, but in action, they were not Christians at all. In action, all those murders.
Oh, no. Even to be in the SS, you had to have pagan beliefs.
Yeah. And Himmler had a 12,000 book library that still exists. It was taken by the Czech government. It exists in the Czech government. It was all occult stuff. And actually, it's weird that you're talking about that, because now this Adam Waffen division and the neo-Nazis that are around here in the UK are, still look back to Wewelsburg and Himmler as an ideal. And they go there and stand on top of the Sonnenrad, right? This black sun motif that was at Wewelsburg Castle, which was the head of the SS. These guys are like, they think of themselves as a modern SS. So it's past is present.
Yeah. Another thing, how, we're talking about him maybe influencing Hitler, but then he also, from what I know, he also gave that victory sign, of the peace sign, to Churchill, right?
Peace sign, yeah. So he was
that was to conquer the Nazi symbol. Right.
So Crowley, spent the latter parts of his life at Hastings, right? Very south of London, at the very bottom of the UK. And when Hess came to the UK and they had this weird flight, this is the number 3 Nazi in the world, right? Flies to the UK. He's supposedly wearing an outfit, like a magician, like it had the sun and moon and stuff on it.
Yeah.
So he shows up, and Crowley sent a letter to Ian Fleming, the author of all the James Bond novels, and said, hey, if you need help in trying to discern what this guy's up to, or the occult, I have no problem to reach out to me. And that letter exists.
Wow.
Yeah, so he was always a loyal person to the UK, and was probably an intel asset for him.
I think so.
Cambridge to the beginning, because he traveled to Russia as the head of like this old time ragdoll girls, which you can still find pictures of, but it was very short lived. But he was there in Russia at a time pregnant with meaning, right? Or the Tsarist Russians. And there was the war, I think 1905 against Japan. There was a lot of things going on. And he was probably sending reports back to, headquarters.
Yeah, I definitely think he was involved in that stuff.
I think it's without dispute. I think he was an intel agent from the beginning. Yeah. He was in Italy, I think in 24, watching the black shirts go march into Rome. So he was there for 3 days, taking notes and watching stuff. So Crowley was unusual in other occultists because you can kind of place them at certain times, but Crowley was all over the place. He was in the U.S., UK, everywhere. France, Germany, Italy.
He was in the United States for a while.
Tangier, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's traveling the world, going to India, climbing K2.
Oh yeah.
Togo-ri, all these things.
Did you ever come up with an idea of why you think that the peace sign was to conquer the swastika?
I don't know.
I know in the LVX, the ritual of the pentagram, you actually make a sign of a swastika at some point. You'd have to do these specific poses, and after you make the sign of the swastika, you actually put your legs together and then extend your hands up, and you would look like the peace sign. And that's actually the sign of Apophis or Typhon that they would call it. And that's actually, tell you that in some ways, it's basically representing the beast.
Interesting. Yeah. And I think those hand gestures and those hand stances are in. There's a picture of Crowley doing them in the Equinox, right?
Yes.
You remember?
Yep. Yeah. They have all those. Yeah. When you look up the LVX signs, you'll see that one comes after the. Sometimes there's two different ways of doing the one sign. You either make almost like a 90-degree angle with your arms, or you will make a swastika, basically. So yeah, you got to check, or if you don't have it in there, I can send it to you. But you could definitely see how there's a swastika in there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hate to cut it short now, only because I do have to be somewhere by 2:45.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, but I definitely would like to have you come on again, at least for. We're gonna have you on the Occult Rejects if you don't mind, for the Smiley Face Killers. But I'd love to have you on for more stuff, even about Crowley or anything occult. Definitely. I definitely want to bring you on for it. You do a great job.
Can you send me the audio for this?
Not a problem. I won't be able to give it to you until later tonight when I get home.
No problem. Anytime.
All right, so that's another episode of the NYPatriot with our guest, William Ramsey. Hope you all enjoyed it, got something out of it. Please go check out his stuff. He has some amazing content. And I guess until the next one, everybody have a good day and be well. Later.